And I'm Brad Wills, and speaking of surf, everything you need to know when it comes to the winter swells, that's coming up. Hey, look who's standing next to me, legendary surfer Pete Townend. We're in Oceanside today. We're going to talk about everything you need to know when it comes to winter surfing, surfboards, wetsuits, and booties. We're back after this. Stay with us. Pete Townend!
All right, it's 8:34 on this Monday. Fox 5's Brad Wills live in Oceanside.
Oh, he's giving us a look inside the California Surf Museum. Oh, you're outside now, and your nose is red.
I'm outside now, you guys. Yeah, we're in Oceanside right now. Look at the waves. They're pumping right now. What a beautiful morning. What a perfect morning to talk about surf. And the guy that's standing next to me, this guy's a legend, everybody. If you're watching at home right now, Pete Townend from Australia, surfing's first professional world champion.
That's
standing next to me. I'm like a kid in a candy store this morning. I mean, yeah, this is a true legend right here. And you're nice enough to drive down from the OC to talk about surfing in the wintertime here and what's coming up and what you need to know if you're heading out into the water. So let's get to it real quick here because we're gonna have a lot of time. What do you think is most important when it comes to wintertime and surfing?
Well, it's a classic California morning and it's kind of chilly. So, I mean, the number one thing is to have a good wetsuit on a day like today. I mean, you need the wetsuit because the water temperatures are down in the 50s right now. So, you know, you really got to have a wetsuit. And there's many different wetsuits today and they're all great. I mean, it's come such a long way from the old days. And but, you know, what I like to do is I still like to use the wetsuits that are about 3.2.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab one of these right here.
This one's the O'Neill one with the sealed seams.
And what does 3.2 mean, though?
Well, it's just the rubber. It's the thickness of the rubber. You know, other people will say a 4.3, which means you're just putting on more rubber. But what I like to do is layer. So I put this like 0.5 millimeter properly underneath it, you know, so that you still have the freedom in the shoulders. But some guys don't mind. But what you got to worry about is that you're adding more weight to yourself. And so that makes it harder to catch the waves,
right?
You know, so and that said, surfboards, you know, another thing when it gets to the winter, you need a little bit more volume in your surfboard. So it's good to have a couple of surfboards just so you can catch the waves. Because summertime, if you're, you know, wearing your light suits and your trunks, you know, there's not as much weight. So that's all part of it. Couple of other things, you know, like earplugs.
Well, let's talk about the earplugs real quick because I haven't worn the earplugs yet, but you said you can alleviate some real big problems down the road if you wear earplugs during the wintertime.
Well, you're going to eventually have problems with your ears in this cold water and the bone growth, and what'll end up, you have to have the surgery. Well, if you start wearing the earplugs early enough, you can stop that from happening because you really don't want to have that surgery. I haven't had it, but a lot of friends of mine have it, and it's one of the most painful surgeries you can have. Outside of those other accessories, the boots, I mean, the boots are an important part.
Let me grab one of the booties. Hold on, I'm going to reach around you real quick here.
You got different kinds of boots. I mean,
very important here in the winter.
The hard sole boot, but there's also ones that have made much more flexible. A lot of people don't like boots, but the boots are so good now. You want to be able to feel the board, and the boots are important. You know, like here's one.
Thin ones,
look,
thick ones.
You see how that is? There's thin ones and thick ones, and it's just a matter of choice and what you feel comfortable with. For me, I like the one that I can't really feel the sole, so I can feel the board. You know, I like to be able to feel my feet on the wax. You know, and so you know, there's a lot of different varieties, but it's a matter of you figuring out what's good for you,
what you're comfortable with, and that's the same with wetsuits. I mean, there's all different brands out there.
It's the same with the surfboards, the wetsuits, and pretty much every brand in the wetsuit business today is good. And so you're not going to go wrong if you go into an established surf shop to buy yourself a good suit. And it's just a matter of how warm you want to be. I mean, you know, the 3.2, you know, you're going to be a little chilled unless you layer. The 4.3, you're going to be warm. A lot of people say they come out, oh, I'm too warm. You know, so you got to find the balance.
The most important thing in the wintertime when it comes to surfing, is there one thing that someone should think about that comes to mind for you when it comes to surfing? The first thing, should they buy the thicker wetsuit? Should they look at the bigger board? What should they do?
The number one thing is to have a good wetsuit. I mean, you don't like to be cold, and so you got to figure out what you feel comfortable with, and then you kind of stick with that. What happens as you get a little older, and I'm getting older, is you want more warmth.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
When you're younger, you can get away with a little bit more cold, but as you get older, you want the warmth.
I don't like being cold to water, man. Especially my son. That's a good example. My son doesn't care, but for me, I need the booties. I need everything. Hey, thanks so much. We're going to come up and talk a little more about the surfboards in the wintertime and what to look for when it comes to waves and some of the better spots, maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody, Pete Townend standing with us in Oceanside. Guys, we're going to throw it back to you. We'll see you next hour.
All right, exciting. I know.
Not Pete Townend.
I know.
Not Pete Townend.
I didn't bring a guitar. I brought my surfboard.
We got onto that a while ago, Brad.
Yeah, we got that one. All right, go surfing, Brad. Thank you very much.
It is 8:38. His nose is red. Chrissy was just
chilly
outside.
at the
I
beach.
know, and Chrissy was just outside and the door was open, and now my fingers are freezing.
Yeah, it's kind of cold out.
All right, it's time now to check in with Brad Wills. He's in Oceanside checking out the California Museum of Surf. Brad?
And good morning, everybody. On a picture-perfect, beautiful morning here in Southern California, we're in Oceanside where the waves are pumping, and we're talking about surfing for the wintertime. And the guy standing next to me, a legend when it comes to surfing, my friend, my new friend, Pete Townend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great on this beautiful winter classic California morning with great surf here at Oceanside Pier.
It's tough to watch the surf standing on the sand here and watch everybody out there having fun, but we got to get some information out to the people at home that are watching right now. When it comes to wintertime and surfing, there's some things you should look into when it comes to surfing besides the wetsuits. Maybe a different board, right? You brought some examples for us, what you're riding?
Well, yeah, this is what I ride, but you know, for the younger kids, these boards probably look like funky and old, but it's no different for whether you're an old guy or a young guy. You kind of need a couple of boards in the winter. You need your traditional ordinary board that you're going to ride on day to day, but then you need a step up, one that's a little bit bigger, got a little bit more volume, so you can catch the winter swells, because in the winter time, you know, we have the big storms up in the Aleutians, and so this is my board for step up. This is like a 7.6, so if we get a real swell, I can catch the waves, because I mean, you can't surf if you don't catch the wave, right? And so the most frustrating thing is not being able to catch it. So I have a step-up board in the winter time, just so you can get into the wave, and then I have my smaller board, you know, where those fun days where maybe it's not as cold, so you're not wearing as much rubber. You know, I mean, wearing the wetsuits is a big factor in the winter time, because all of a sudden you're all suited up. You're a little bit stiffer, you're not as flexible, you can't catch the waves as easy, and so it's all about a bit of an adjustment in the wintertime.
Well, you mentioned the surfboards and you just mentioned the wetsuits, and this is the anniversary of the wetsuit. 60 years ago this thing was made, at least the first one?
Well, yeah, Jack O'Neill and the Maestro brothers, Dive and Surf Body Glove, those guys really put wetsuits on the map way back then, 60 years ago, and so one of the greatest inventions, because if you think about it, in California, we probably wear our wetsuit, more than what?
Year round,
yeah,
most of
pretty
the time.
much. I mean, I come from the tropics in Australia a long time ago, and I never grew up wearing wetsuits, and it's pretty hard for me not to surf all the time without a wetsuit, and you know, so the wetsuit, one of the greatest inventions, of course, in surfing.
Right, and right now we're talking about the water's cold. We're in the 50s, so there's different thicknesses when it comes to the wetsuit. You prefer a 3.2, then there's the 4.3. It's all about preference when it comes to surfing, right?
Well, yeah, I use the 3.2 just because my old shoulders, I like the flexibility.
Well, hold that bad boy up right there.
And then I'll put this underneath it to give a little warmth. But a lot of guys are doing the 4.3 thing, but the thing is, you know, you're just adding weight and more rubber. And while you're warmer, you're not as flexible, and it's a little bit more tough to catch the waves. So, you know, we're in Southern California now. If you're going north to Rincon or Santa Cruz, you need a 4.3. But
well, so you need the 4.3, and then you're going to put the hood on and everything like that.
You need to be fully organized.
Another thing we need are booties. Well, at least most people need the booties.
Yeah, I mean, the booties are great in the wintertime because your toes get cold. You
Hold that thing up there.
Yeah, this one's a really like flexible one, so I don't like the rigid ones. I like the ones that are really flexible, so that I can still feel the board. You know, I want to be able to feel the wax on my board, and so the booties are a really important accessory too.
Earplugs,
another one. Earplugs, especially if you don't want to end up having the surgery, you know, for the closed ear that comes from just years of surfing in the cold water. You might think as a kid that's not going to happen, but let me tell you, when you get older like me, it's going to happen.
Wear the earplugs. All right, so when it comes to the wave in the wintertime, the waves that come down the coastline, like you said, from the northwest, is there any certain spots we want to look for without giving away the good ones? Maybe some public ones out there?
We'll get in trouble,
right? We don't want to do that. So are there some public spots you can think of?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, like most of the spots you know today, I mean, Southern California, you know, everybody knows where the good spots are. But in the wintertime, you know, you've got the classic spots that attract the north swells. You know, in the summertime, it's all about going to trestles. Everybody drives up from San Diego. Everybody drives down from Orange County because of the south swells. But that's not the case in the winter. There's other spots that go off. And actually, I love this area right here. This area here in Oceanside is somewhat a little bit of a best kept secret because you have so much flexibility. And I've spent a lot of my life surfing Huntington Beach Pier, and it's the same thing. You have a lot of flexibility with the tides and the swells, but it loves the winter swells, you know, those northwest swells. You get the good morning conditions like we got right now this morning, and you just gotta be on it, you know. You gotta get up and and check it out. And well, you know, the beauty today, we have things like Surfline. You can check it before you get out of bed.
Get on the computer, yeah, and look at cameras down the coastline. All right, Pete, thanks for the knowledge. I appreciate it here. So we got the wetsuits, we've got layering up here, the earplugs, the booties, and of course, check out some of his boards. Look for Pete in the lineup during the winter time here. Thanks for sharing some time this morning with us.
Not a problem, really.
Guys, hit the beach.
I'm going to look for Brad in that lineup. All right, Brad, thank you.